Well, welcome back. Here we are at the Future Transform in Anaheim, California, and we have a wonderful opportunity to take a gentleman who has been in the audience spot for many months and to put him in front of the camera so he can be with us. This is Michael Berman from California State University, Channel Islands. And Michael, what's your current title?
My current title is Vice President for Technology and Communication.
So you get to cover an awful lot there.
We do. Typical of a smaller college.
Yes.
I'm at Cal State Channel Islands, which is the newest and second smallest Cal State.
Sure, in 1999?
2002. Yeah.
How many full-time students do you have there?
We have 5,600 full-time equivalent students.
So that's kind of small, especially for California.
It is.
Yeah. How long have you been there?
I've been there for 7 years, so I've been there for nearly half the existence.
You're an old timer right there.
I'm getting there, although there's still a certain status that incurs to those who are there at the true beginning, the true founders. Yeah.
They're like those of us with our actual names on Twitter.
Exactly.
Well, I have so many questions I want to ask you, and I would like to begin with one, which is about the conference, because here we are again, from the convention floor. And those who, in fact, just take a second, if you are just joining us or if you haven't done this before, we'd love you to participate with us. And there are a lot of ways of doing that. So if you're on Twitter, please tweet at the hashtag FTTE, or myself, Brian Alexander. What's your Twitter handle now?
A. Michael Berman.
A. Michael Berman. And that's all, no characters, all the characters or anything?
Just my name, and it's A. Michael Berman because there are a lot of Michael Bermans.
Yeah,
and Arthur's my first name, so I'm A. Michael Berman.
Arthur, is it?
It is, yes.
Okay. I've actually repressed that information, and now I will exploit
it to the
help. The other thing is, if you're here in the Shindig environment, again, remember, in the very bottom right of the screen, there are 2 orange dots that you can click on. And if your camera and mic are working, and you're in a spot where you can...
this way.
Yeah, but see that? It's reversed. Yeah, so bottom right.
Okay.
And the orange one that has a raised hand on it, click that and fire up your mic and camera, and you can join us on stage and ask Michael a question. If, on the other hand, that you are in a public place or your mic and camera don't work, or if you're feeling shy, that's fine. Click on the Ask button, and then you can type in a comment or a question, and we'll flash it up on the screen for everyone to see, and I'll read it out loud. So please, as we go, fire questions and comments at us. We're glad to hear from you. And let me just quickly, shout out to a few people who are here, including Aaron English, who asked great questions yesterday, as well as to David. And I believe to Tian Hong, whose name I always brutalize and mispronounce. So we're glad that you're all here. The question I've been asking everybody who has been here this week in Anaheim, from John O'Brien, the president of EDUCAUSE, to people who are observing, which is, what are some of the major topics and ideas that you've been hearing or seeing here at the conference?
Well, anybody who's been to this conference knows that it's a huge elephant of a conference, and so you grab onto one piece of the elephant, and so a lot of it is what you intend to come looking for and who you hang around with. And I had a couple of things that I was interested in looking for.
Which were?
Well, one has to do with identity management. So this has been a kind of a pet topic of mine for a long time. It's a critical piece of infrastructure to be able to understand who the people are on your campus and what they're doing and provide the right services to the right people. Sounds kind of boring, but it's a tough, naughty problem, and really in both senses of naughty. And
well, that's why I'm back to the elephant again.
That's right. And so the state of the art when I started coming to EDUCAUSE was that people were just trying to understand what this meant, and then they started building tools and open source tools and different ways to approach it. And a lot of us have been waiting for companies to provide this as a cloud-based service, and it's clearly here now. That's one thing that's interesting to me, because I've been waiting for that for a while. I'd like to get out of the business of supporting and providing on my campus.
But the companies, are you thinking of, say, Twitter, Facebook, and Google+?
No, I'm thinking of Okta, One Login. Identity Automation is a company that was new to me that I saw here. And so they can provide your directories and your sign-in, your single sign-in, and all the tools that connect your single sign-in to all the providers.
So the student gets to have their email, which you provide,
right?
If it's an alias or outsourced or whatever, and then that lets them get into the library catalog, and lets them get into their LMS and all this. And it's one stop.
Exactly. And most campuses have that now.
In different ways.
In very different ways, but it's becoming much more standardized and easy to provide and more reasonably priced, where a company can do that for you. And then there's a lot of ancillary. So there's a company called Cirrus Identity that's run by a woman, Deidre Chamberlain, who used to be at Berkeley. And what they're doing is tying that to Facebook and Twitter. So that if I have, for example, let's say I'm going to have an event for prospective students, and I want to have prospective students come stay on my campus for a weekend, and I don't want to go through the trouble of creating accounts for them manually. Right? I can say, well, just come here and tell me your Facebook account or your Google account, and I'll use that as your credential to give you whatever you need for the next weekend, and then I'll shut it down when you're done. But by the way, if you give that to me, then I'm probably going to ask you for the right to contact you later with information about my campus, or at least to tell me to opt in or opt out of that.
It's kind of like giving you their business card.
Exactly, or I've got a visiting professor on campus. You know, just give me your Google account or your Facebook account, and I'll give you certain basic services. I may not give you services that I may not be able to let you use the library because perhaps our contract with the library providers requires something else.
Right. Now, in these cases, are they just giving you their handle, or are they actually logging in with their password?
Well, they would have to essentially go back to Google, and log into Google. And you've seen it with other kinds of services,
all the time.
Yeah. So they would log into Google on Google, and Google would say this Middleburg University is asking for your credentials, and you would do that, and then it would allow you to get access to whatever you want to give them access to.
That's
and it's just a lot less overhead than what you have to do if you have to have them come and show an ID and sign them in and create an account and all that. We don't want to have to do that. People want to have access to services on campus, and we can't necessarily give it to just anybody, all services to anybody who walks on the campus, but we want to be able to be flexible and let people very quickly get access to certain things.
So overall, there's been progress in this.
A lot of progress, yeah.
We have a question coming up about this.
Yeah.
Let's see, is this a question flashed on the screen, or is this someone who wants to come up on stage? This is Chris, who wants to know if you can see this. I'll read it out loud. Can you share with us current standing of the CSU LP's LMS RFP, and does CSU plan to mimic this method of tech purchasing for other services? I don't have a really good answer for that.
You don't even know what the question means, but
I give about 90% of it.
Yeah, the Cal State went through an evaluation process of learning management systems.
When you say Cal State, do you mean the entire system?
The entire system. And ultimately, because of the diversity and the complexity of the system, that wasn't necessarily the intention to pick one system that all campuses would use, but the idea was to vet what was out there in the marketplace.
And then share your best knowledge of it?
Share our best knowledge across all the campuses and get a standard contract and a standard price that every campus could use. And so ultimately, we're in the process of signing contracts for Canvas, for Desire to Learn, and for Blackboard.
So there wasn't it's opposite of standardization. You've got
that's correct.
Three very different ones.
And we could have a long discussion about the value of standardization versus not standardization, different approaches. But that was the decision with that. I don't think we'll do that very often, and it's just because it's a lot of work.
Are you thinking about would that kind of thing be worth doing for, say, next generation ERP down the road a bit?
Well, interestingly enough, we have one ERP for all 23 campuses, which in our case is PeopleSoft. Yeah, we all share PeopleSoft.
Oh, wow.
And it's all hosted remotely, and certain core functions are managed centrally by the chancellor's office, and then some aspects are handled on campuses.
Oh, so if you decide to move into the next version of that, whatever that would be, it would have to be done with all 24?
Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think that, and I'm pretty close to that. I've been involved in some of the work around evaluating what's out there. For reasons that are probably way too specialized at CSU, I don't want to go into all the details of what upgrades we need to do, but I think that maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, there may be interest in experimenting and maybe taking one campus and going in a different direction.
Well, that's a nice thing about a system.
That's right.
You can have that kind of experimentation and share it.
We're pretty good at learning from each other.
Well, you're unusual in a lot of ways, and I have a question about that before you go, actually. But you mentioned that you came to Anaheim this year looking for identity management. You see some progress on that. Because you were looking for a couple of things. What was the other thing?
Well, I was looking to see, really huge issue for the Cal State, and this doesn't make us much unlike other campuses, is a hugely increased emphasis on getting students through with degrees and doing it quickly. So, a couple of years ago, the governor of California said, you Cal States, you really should be getting students through in 4 years, and you're doing a terrible job of it.
This is what I was going to ask you about.
And the Cal State said, well, we don't really do 4 years. Our students have complicated lives. 4 years isn't a good metric.
Right.
And the governor kind of said, the hell you say. get them through in 4 years. You should be able to get through 4 years. Maybe not everybody, but a lot more, because right now we're about 25%. About 25% get through in 4 years. And so we now have a very strong emphasis and a very high level directive to do better with 4 and 6 year graduation, and to attempt to 100% close any kind of gaps based on the ethnicity of the student.
Wow.
So that all students will do well. Our gaps are pretty low already, which is impressive.
Well,
that's a good
CSUs
thing.
have historically served for this
That's right.
population.
Sure. Yeah, my campus of freshmen are majority Hispanic.
Right. Do you consider yourself a Hispanic serving institution?
We're a designated Hispanic serving institution, and that's provided a lot of federal resources.
Oh, good.
To support the campus.
Good. Well, we'll see if that continues under President Trump.
Right.
But
We shall see. But we're generalissimo Trump.
Yeah. Yes.
But the pardon the political comment. But the what this has done is it's focused attention on tools and processes that are going to help us be more effective in getting students through quickly, and part of that's the technology.
Well, and this is where learning analytics could really come in handy.
Well, learning analytics, but there's a whole set of tools. There's what I would call student communication tools. There's what's now becoming to be called, in a analogy to the medical and social services field, case management, which are tools that help your advisors really understand the life cycle of a student.
So better advising.
To improve advising, but also to improve advising efficiency, because we only have one advisor for 1,000 students. So you're not going to sit down and have a long meeting.
Wow.
You're not going to have every student sit down and have a long meaningful conversation with an advisor.
Awesome.
Now, a lot of the advising, to be fair, those are the general advisors, the faculty advisors as well. So a lot of students,
individual majors,
especially when they're in their higher levels. But when a student comes in, they may depend on those advisors, and they're incredibly overworked. So giving them tools that will help them be more efficient and also help them serve the students that need help the most is really critical. And data management. Data management is huge. So we've been talking about data management, data analysis, and higher ed, and business analytics, and so forth, which is a terrible term to use with higher education, but that's kind of the term of the art, And we've been talking about it, and some campuses have done a lot, but I think the average level on most campuses has been pretty minimal. Pretty basic.
I agree.
And that's just not cutting it anymore. This is becoming now essential infrastructure. Certainly for a California State College, you've got to up your game in terms of your ability to manage and use data and use it to make decisions and use it for evidence.
Or else the state will take care of you.
That's correct.
Well, we had both John O'Brien and Susan Gray up here from EDUCAUSE, and they were talking about this greater emphasis within EDUCAUSE and student success, and how that involves kind of cross-disciplinary and cross-domain collaborations between, say, IT and student affairs and academic affairs in order to take advantage of tools like the ones you were just describing in order to really improve things. So with luck, this could really help you survive and meet your legislature's challenge.
Absolutely. And that's also why we're looking at something like identity management, which is something where we built our own infrastructure. And I need to figure out a strategy to take as many things like that and move them into the cloud, move them out of the domain of IT, because I've now got to be the center of data excellence. And I've got to manage retention services and student analytics and learning analytics. And also, by the way, increase our ability to support online classes and blended classes and use of technology in traditional classes, all those things at the same time.
Just keeps ramifying.
So finding as many that can be commodified and simply purchased as a service, hopefully at a lower price or at least better value than what you had back in the day, is essential to create just the mind space for my staff so they can deal with everything else that's coming at us. Tsunami.
Which is not something you can say idly in California.
No.
But no, that's a beautiful description of a very, very challenging environment. I wanted to follow up on that, but we have one more question from no, not right now. No. We have time for one of my questions. Actually, Ross did one. Would you be willing to share your findings about the comparison?
Yes, and I believe that if you go to csulps.com, and maybe somebody who's here could double check and make sure that's the right URL, but I think it's csulps.com. It's learning platforms and systems.
So everybody now is typing.
And we took everything we learned except for the contract, the details of the contracts, everything else that we did and learned is on that site to be shared.
Oh,
and there's
great.
a lot of material. There's interviews and webinars. There's evaluations. There's a blog. There's interviews with faculty, with students. Quite a lot of material there.
Excellent.
And that's all shared for anyone to have.
Well, it seems like a theme that has come up throughout the Future Transform throughout this year. Definitely this week has been sharing this kind of knowledge. So, I mean, we have roughly 4,000 institutions of higher education in the U.S. They're all exploring and coming up with new tools. But I'm conscious of time. We're going to need to hand over. Do we have any more questions? Why don't we bring this up? Actually, hang on a second. Can you bring that one up one more time?
Yep.
It just flashed on. Sorry, my browser just had an interesting hiccup. And this is from George Station, also from the CSU campus. George wants to know, is California government providing real support for the new CSU grad initiative, or is there more dependence on federal resources?
Well, define real. There is a big chunk, a pretty significant chunk this year of one-time money to support this initiative.
From the feds or
from the state? I believe that the CSU got a total of $35 million. Which, of course, spread over 500,000 students isn't that big a number.
No,
it's like $7 a student.
And how big is the budget now? Is that
it's between $2 and $3 billion budget for the House. So there is some support. I think the challenge is the right kind of support, because the biggest problem that we're having on my campus, Channel Islands, and I know that George is in Cal State Monterey Bay, and I know they're facing similar issues, is that we're really lacking in staff to do the supporting work, and one-time dollars can't hire permanent staff. So will it translate into permanent ongoing budget that can, for example, hire advisors? That if I know George works with freshman transfer experience type courses, and is it going to actually hire more faculty who can teach those type of courses? Maybe not. I mean, it might provide great money for a pilot.
Right.
So
okay, it sounds like
right. So we know that we're interested in high impact practices, and freshman experience is an example of a high impact practice that's been proven to improve retention. So we can get money. We can redesign the freshman experience class, but it's not a one-shot deal, because you got to pay faculty every semester to teach that. Is it going to solve that problem? I don't think so, and I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on campuses to do reallocations on those things.
That's a good question you asked, George, and it's it comes back to something that we heard from both John and Susan, which was that one of the big challenges facing most campuses in education is funding pressures.
That's right, and I think the data is going to play a bigger role on many campuses, maybe not on all.
Well, use that money to buy software packages.
Well, but software packages without people are probably not going to provide long-term benefit.
No, people is always the hardest thing.
Yeah.
As I said before earlier today, EDUCAUSE is a bit like Soylent Green. It's made of people, and this program.
And we eat our own.
Well, that's true in some ways, or we feed each other. And I'm so glad that you fed us from your expertise in the past 20 minutes.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you come. And we are on schedule for our next and for our final guest for today. I want to thank you so much, Arthur, for coming today.
Have fun with Kenneth.
Oh, I will, because I get to I'll call him A. Kenneth.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
It's wonderful to have you on this side of the screen.
I'm glad your jacket recovered.
Me too. It recovered with help.